Perfect. Okay. So, can you just start by introducing yourself and saying your name and your title?
My name is Gerry Scharfenberger. I'm an assemblyman in Legislative District 13.
So, can you explain your duties?
As part of the legislature, we're responsible for drafting and adopting the laws of the state. So that's a little bit different from being a mayor or a freeholder, which I served in previously.
What were you mayor of?
I was mayor of Middletown for years and years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you look familiar. I was wondering why.
And I was freeholder for 2 years. So up
Oh,
until 2017, I was the mayor of Middletown.
okay.
And 18 and 19, I was a freeholder. And now I am in the assembly.
So, how have your duties changed because of quarantine?
It's interesting. We're trying to operate pretty much the same way, only from a distance. We had to meet, we had one special emergency session where we all met physically at the assembly chambers to vote on a bill that would allow us to do our business remotely. So we had one voting session remotely where we all sat in our homes and we were able to vote on legislation from a distance. And we have another one coming up this coming Monday. So there's going to be another voting session. And typically a lot of the legislation that we dealt with 2 weeks ago, and now we will deal with again on Monday, has to do directly with the crisis that we're in the middle of now. And it'll be things like one of the bills that we passed was to allow towns and counties more time to get their budgets together, because state law would say you would have to have the budgets done by a certain time, and this gave them an extension because everything is so up in the air now that people need more time. So we're dealing with things like that.
So, how have you adapted overall to quarantine personally?
It's been very tough. In fact, it's almost surreal because when you're in this position, every night there's something you have to do. Every day there's something you have to do. I've had meetings scheduled up until the end of April at the time. This was early March when we got the lockdown notice. So that's been very difficult, just the feeling of not having to be somewhere or having to go somewhere. But at the same token, we're very busy because there's conference calls, there's these sort of things through Zoom. I had a Zoom meeting with the president of Brookdale last week where we went over a bunch of issues that are affecting them during this that they asked for my help with. So it's having to readjust the way you do your daily task. And it's been a little weird, I guess is the best way to put it, but everybody's in the same boat. And then you still have your household things you have to do. You have to have food. You have to, I have a 93-year-old mother-in-law who lives with me. So, we're all pitching in. But it's worked out pretty well. And naturally, you get tired of just sitting in the house and doing things. You like to get out, but except for going to the supermarket, I really haven't gone out to do anything. And, so far, so good.
So, what actions have you and your family taken to stay healthy and social distance?
We're in contact with friends and family, through text and phone calls. That goes without saying. In fact, I have two good friends who got the virus. And one, I'm happy to report, took the drug hydroxychloroquine. And within a day, she felt better. And within 5 days, it was completely gone. So I'm very hopeful hearing that story so close to home. So, we have Purell here. I've been wearing a mask when I go to the supermarket, staying away from people. And it's not always that easy because a lot of people know me because of, all the years I spent in local government. And, people are very friendly. But I think everybody understands we can chit chat from 10 feet apart, and say hello. And, you don't want to spend any more time outside than you have to. So we're doing all those things. I did a PSA for the assembly about, washing your hands, staying apart, staying home. And every doctor I've spoken to says the same thing. It seems so simple and so obvious, but that's really what does it, because this virus breaks down in soap. So if you can wash your hands good, it'll kill the virus instantly. So little things like that seem so simple and so routine, but they are so important.
So that leads me into my next question. What is the importance of a routine to you? And how does this play in your personal and your professional life?
Ordinarily, since I'm a kid, my wife makes fun of me for that. I'm so regimented time-wise. I keep on a schedule. So it's sort of easy for me to get into a routine and stick to it. But I think it's good. And you want to be able to do things like put a mask on or wash your hands or not. My instinct, especially, being an elected official, is to always greet people and shake hands. And for the first couple of days, I really had to catch myself when I would come in close contact. And now I don't even think of it. Now, ordinarily, I just stay back. So a routine, I think, is very important because it's sort of, you don't have to think about it so much where it becomes second nature and you do it instinctively. And I think that's the importance of a routine. And I think a lot of people are like that.
So what part has technology played in the transition into quarantine?
It's enormous. In fact, I'm from an age where you're probably more technologically adept at things than I am. And it's made it so much easier because to be able to have a meeting where you're even speaking face to face and you can maybe hold something up, a chart or a graph, and show the other person from blocks or even, miles away is remarkable. And it's really made all the difference where we can keep in close contact. I'm in touch with my staff. I have 3 people on my staff who I keep in constant contact with. Facebook has been very important where we can get messages out and word out that we want to get out and hear back from people. So I've been answering email. I get hundreds of emails a day and doing my best to keep up with them. And I have a great staff who's helping me catch up with that. So it really has made all the difference.
So how has Monmouth County as a whole responded to the quarantine?
They've responded very well. And you'll always get a few people who will rebel or resist, but for the most part, I think people realize the gravity of the situation. And I think they've really stepped up to do their part. And it is a big sacrifice, especially this week. And, I'm going to miss going to Easter Mass for the first time in my whole lifetime. I've never missed it. So this is, a very difficult time. But I think once we're past it and we're all okay, and we look back and say, gee, it was tough, but we made it. And so far, people have been very cooperative. And I think you have to give them hope, too. You can't always say this is going to be a never-ending, situation of having to stay in your house and not do the things that you love to do. And, so that's it. People, I think, are willing to sacrifice as long as they know that there is an end in sight and there is a game plan to get people back into their normal routine.
So how have hospitals responded to the virus?
I cannot say enough good about them. In fact, I'm fortunate enough to be on a weekly conference. 2 days a week, we have a conference call with Hackensack Meridian, which oversees a fair amount of hospitals throughout the state. And the New Jersey Hospital Association, they have a regular conference call. So when you hear the hours that these people are putting in and the sacrifices they're making, sometimes sleeping, in hotels nearby, or it's just remarkable. And we owe everything to them. They are making the difference. And, you could tell they're tired, they're, worn out, and they're, a little bit frustrated, but they're always with a smile and always hopeful. And I think that's inspiring the rest of us.
So how do you think this will affect everyone when we come out of quarantine?
I think it's going to make them appreciate life a little bit more, the life that we led beforehand. Sometimes we take it for granted, how good we have it, where we can get in the car and go to see a concert or go to a movie or go to a restaurant. And when those things are taken away, I think we're going to really appreciate the simple things in life, just getting back into the routine of being able to go to a neighbor's house for a barbecue and things like that. And it's going to come, it's going to come. I think I'm hopeful that it'll come quicker than even, we're being told. But I think that's the main thing. People are going to appreciate their friends, their family, and the simple things in life like they never have before.
So, how can students and members of the community be of service during this time?
It's funny you should ask that too, because I'm also a college professor, and I'm in the middle of a class that I had to go from in person immediately to online. And so my students, and I'm trying to give them advice too, in addition to do the work, to make sure that you stay in touch with elderly relatives and make sure that they have, if there's people who, have some sort of serious disease that may not be elderly, to check on them. And I think if the families rally around these folks, that's really the main thing. Make sure, if you're fairly healthy and in good shape and you take precautions, maybe you could run to the supermarket for somebody who can't necessarily get out. And I think that's going to make it easier on everybody to be able to pitch in and help those who are not that mobile and not that, healthy in the first place.
What school do you teach at?
I teach at Monmouth University.
Oh, what do you teach?
I teach archaeology.
So how have your students adapted to virtual learning?
So far, it's been okay. It's never the same as that interaction face to face. Online courses, I know they're very popular now, but I still think you lose a little bit without that interaction, because I don't have the school wanted all the professors to do this as simply as possible, because not everybody has the technology, maybe to do Zoom or to do that sort of thing. And so by making lectures available online, I use a lot of PowerPoint, so I'm able to post them with descriptions of each one of the images. And I also have a couple of videos that I show, so I'm able to get them on YouTube. So, so far it's worked out pretty well. Luckily, I had half the term, so I was able to get my midterm in and a few assignments. There were a couple of other papers that they had to write, which doesn't matter. I mean, they would either hand them to me in person or submit them to me as an attachment through an email. So it's worked out. I would never want to do this by choice, but we're making the best of it. And I just never want to feel like the kids got shortchanged the way it would be in a normal class. So I'm really trying to do everything I can to make it as full and as good an experience for them as I can.
What are your suggestions or words of wisdom for those struggling during this time?
Well, I think the best thing you can tell anybody, and you've probably heard it before, is number one, you're not alone. Everyone's going through it. Number two, it's not going to be forever. In fact, I think it's going to be a lot sooner than we all think, where we can start to get a little bit loose with our, daily routine. So that's it. And just, tomorrow's another day, and, you take each day as it comes. And now, look, we're in the middle of week 3 or 3.5, wherever we're at, with the lockdown. So we have 3 weeks behind us already. And I think, within the next 3 weeks, you're going to see a big difference. So, we have to keep people who are going through this, people who've died, who are still struggling with it, really pray for them. And, I think if we all pull together, do what we're told to do, we can get through this. And the main things are the distancing, I think, is key. The washing of the hands and covering of the face. We all do those 3 at a minimum, we'll be fine.
And anything for students, like from an educational standpoint?
Well, it's really important. I'm one of those nerds who really liked school and loved reading and everything. And I think it's important to keep up with it because, these days are passing and you're going to be that much closer to having to go out into the real world and get your career started and everything and whatever it is you want to do. So, to keep up with that, we're lucky we live in an age now where you can get so many things online. I come from a time when you used to have to go to a library and get a book out or do research like that. Now you can research journals and scientific papers and books online. It's incredible. So take advantage of it and don't fall behind. And I think that's probably the best advice. Everybody will come out of this better than when they went into it.
Anything else you would like to say?
No, just that this was a pleasant surprise. You did a great job, and if there's anything I can do, either as Professor Scharfenberger or Assemblyman Scharfenberger, to help, or you need anything else, don't hesitate. I'd be happy to help. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.